Hey guys, just want to briefly talk about some exciting new news for Stardew Valley. Basically, the developer Concerned Ape has made an announcement a couple of hours ago about the most substantial new content update that the game has had so far, which is going to be version 1.1. And I think the main focus for this update is going to be on late game content. I know that some of the complaints that have been made about this game are that you kind of run out of things to do in the late game once you've got a lot of kegs and you're making loads of money with wine and stuff like that, if that is how you play it. I know some people feel like you kind of run out of things to do. So he specifically mentions that as something that he's going to be working on among many other things, which I'm just going to go over now. So he starts off the post by talking about how well the game has been doing. Obviously it completely deserves it. It's a really good game. I've been really enjoying playing it. He starts talking about how he's been doing a lot of stuff, and he's taken a little break. Been playing some other games like Age of Empires 2, which I completely respect. That's one of my favourite games. But what he's talking about are the things he's planning for the next few months. I think mostly that includes Mac and console ports. So it's basically trying to get the game out to more people. I think now that it's been proven as a complete success, they're trying to get it to as many people as they possibly can, which makes sense, and also trying to capitalize on it with merchandise and so on. So that makes sense as well. But what's quite interesting here are the co-op multiplayer. So I have no idea how that would work, but it is something that they actually mentioned as being in the pipeline before the game was even released. They said that there would be a co-op multiplayer coming out at some point. So I'm not sure what exactly that would involve. It would be quite interesting if we could visit other people's farms, or even just make a farm along with other people. Just more multiplayer in general I think would be quite useful, quite interesting, and I can imagine it working as well in a place like the mines. You can imagine combat working quite well with two people on the same side against various monsters and things. But what's more interesting to me personally is probably just the actual content involved in the 1.1 update. I'm really excited to see what he unleashes on the world of Stardew Valley. So let's talk about the things he actually mentions. There's all this talk here about how he's shifting focus. He's going to be working on game content while the people at his game publisher, Chucklefish, are going to be working on the more technical stuff. So he mentions the things he's adding as more late game content, new farm buildings, new crops, new artisan goods, new advanced farming and producing mechanics. That's quite interesting to me. I have no idea what that would really mean. But that is in particular quite intriguing. Shane and Emily as the new marriage candidates. If you don't know about that was I think that was a community vote, and those were decided as the next two most wanted candidates. I know that people have been begging for Shane to be a marriageable candidate since day one, pretty much. Emily not so much. And something that's quite interesting, I think, about the Emily situation is that there's implied to be some kind of crush going on between Clint the blacksmith and Emily, who doesn't feel the same way or even doesn't even realize he exists or something. I'm not entirely sure how exactly that plays out, but I think he is going to need to address that. And I think that's what he's talking about when he says that there will be more events for non-marriage NPCs. I think there's going to need to be some way to settle that so that you can marry Emily without feeling like you're being a dick to Clint. He also says more marriage content for all spouses. That would be good. He's already done at least one update where he made the spouses seem more personal. They made their personality come out a bit more once you've already married them, so that should be pretty good. More events in general would be pretty good. I assume it's not just Clint. I assume there'll be a whole bunch of others as well, so that's all good. Improvements and additions to mining and combat. I'm not entirely sure what that would involve. One thing that I can imagine happening is possibly when you hold down the left click button, maybe you can mine more than one rock at once or something, in the same way that you can with the iridium hoe and the iridium watering can and stuff like that, possibly. This is something that people are definitely going to want quite badly. The ability to move buildings. That should mean that you don't really need to worry at all about planning your farm out from the start, because you can move things around later on. More bug fixes, more secrets, more small fun touches to the world. I just want to talk briefly about one thing that you could change for the other convenience features he's talking about. I also think that, I know it's been mentioned in the past that there might be some way to change professions, because some people feel like they made the wrong profession choice, particularly if they don't know that what they choose at level 5 will narrow their choices down for when they get to level 10 in a certain skill. So I imagine that might be an option, and it also might kind of tie into the late game content stuff, because he might make it extremely expensive, for example. He might make moving farm buildings extremely expensive. But also, I think the professions themselves, he's spoken about rebalancing. I think that it's widely acknowledged that the artisan profession is extremely powerful, and it looks like it's going to get even more powerful if he adds in new artisan goods. So I think there's been some mention in the past about buffing animals. So there's a chance that animals will become a more viable alternative to just absolutely filling up your farm with crops, but we'll have to wait and see precisely how he does that. He hasn't actually explained that just yet. But what's really interesting, and the real meat, I think, of this blog post is this screenshot here, where he kind of directly shows us some of the new things that have been added. I've been looking at this a little bit, and from what I can see, there are a total of 4 obvious changes here. And you might be able to spot a 5th, and if you can spot a 5th, then definitely do leave a comment, because I think people would want to know. But personally, what I can see here are a new artisan good, which would be the void mayonnaise there. He has mentioned that void mayonnaise is coming, so I'm 99% sure that's what that is. That would make some sense, because I think in their current form, void chickens are slightly less powerful or useful than normal chickens, which seems weird considering they're a special event. But void mayonnaise would give you some way to actually make a little bit more out of what they produce for you. There's also a new crop here, which is definitely, I think, going to be the tea leaf or the coffee bean. Tea leaf or the coffee bean, one or the other. I think that's probably coffee bean. It's one or the other, basically. And I think this is going to be a summer crop, possibly a spring and summer crop. I'm just basing that on the screenshot. You can see that there's a cloud floating over there. And you can also see the way the maple tree is, that it is the summer that this screenshot is taken in, so I'm pretty sure that's when that will be a crop that you can grow. You can put those tea leaves or coffee beans, I think it's coffee beans, into the kegs in order to produce coffee. So that's the second new thing, the third new thing. There's a mayonnaise, new crop, and the ability to make coffee. But the fourth thing is very interesting, which is this thing that looks slightly like a silo, but very different to any farm building we've seen so far. There's I think red mushrooms down there at the bottom, so that's potentially one way that you'd build it, for example. But beyond that, I really couldn't say what this could possibly be at this stage. It would be very interesting to find that out. One thing that I will say is that I know that he's spoken about bringing the Junimos back once you've completed the kind of main storyline. So I feel kind of confident that whatever this is, it's going to have something to do with the Junimos. And you can see that there's these kind of antennae just here at the top of this pole thing. I'm not sure what to call it. It does kind of give a vibe of having something to do with the Junimos, possibly. So that should be quite interesting. In terms of what other new farm buildings could be added, I think if there's one I had to name, it would probably be the storeroom, possibly, because people have been storing so far massive lots of kegs in barns, which looks a bit unsightly and just feels kind of like the wrong way to use a barn. So I can imagine him adding in a storeroom, and potentially like an upgraded storeroom where you can go down to another basement floor or something, or even a basement to the house or something like that. I think all of that stuff would work pretty well, just for giving you some way to kind of fill a place with machines that doesn't involve just kind of placing them all over your farm, which you might think doesn't look very good. Another thing for the late game content, I think there's kind of two different approaches you could take to that. The first approach would be to just make more items that are extremely expensive and extremely difficult to buy, so that when you do end up making absolute millions and millions, you still can't easily afford everything, or there are some things that are just out of your touch. And whether they actually make a difference or whether they're purely cosmetic, I'm not entirely sure which approach you'll go for. But another approach that you could potentially go for that would change things altogether would be to move things away from the money focus a little bit, and just make things so that you can get good items, but you can't buy them with gold. So you need to find some other way of getting them. For example, there could be challenges or something where you need a variety of crops, a variety of items, or whatever, in order to unlock something else. That's pure speculation, but that's just talking about two different angles that you could go for. Either either things could get a lot more expensive or things could get a lot less dependent on gold. I think both of those approaches would work, and they could probably he could do both of those things, and that would both work pretty well. But yeah, what's definitely most interesting about this is this screenshot here, this really interesting looking building in the middle. The addition of void mayonnaise is really cool, the addition of new crops is great as well. I'm personally looking forward to the more late game content probably most of all, but also new farm buildings and new crops would be really nice. And also, I have no idea what to expect from the new advanced farming and producing mechanics, but yeah, it definitely looks really exciting, so I'm really hyped up about this. I think it's going to be a really great update. Anyway, I hope this video helps you guys. I will leave a link to this blog post in the description so you'll be able to read it yourself. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.